In the winter of 1957, inside the sprawling workshops of Rouen in central France, a strange little armored vehicle crawled out of the factory gates for the first time. It was squat, noisy, cramped, and undeniably unimpressive. 15 tons of welded steel riding on 5 road wheels aside, with a backwards-mounted petrol engine crammed awkwardly into the hull. The troop compartment behind it was hot, loud, and suffocating. 10 infantrymen were expected to squeeze inside shoulder to shoulder, staring out through tiny firing ports nobody fully trusted. Its armor could stop rifle fire. Barely. It had no amphibious capability, no NBC protection, and no advanced optics. To most observers, it looked less like the future of mechanized warfare and more like a budget compromise built by a country still recovering from World War II. And yet that same vehicle would go on to outlive almost every prediction made about it. The French called it the AMX-VCI, Véhicule de Combat d'Infanterie. What began as a simple troop carrier would eventually serve across 4 continents, fight in wars France itself never entered, evolve into more than 20 battlefield variants, and remain operational nearly 70 years later. To understand why the VCI existed at all, you have to rewind to the early 1950s. Post-war France had rebuilt its army almost entirely with American hardware. M3 half-tracks carried French infantry. M24 Chaffees handled reconnaissance duties. Even armored personnel carriers arrived through U.S. military aid programs. The problem was obvious. Every spare part, every replacement vehicle, every logistical dependency pointed back to Washington. France wanted independence. At AMX headquarters, engineers realized they already possessed the foundation they needed. The AMX-13 light tank was proving successful, lightweight, fast, and relatively cheap to manufacture. So instead of designing a new armored carrier from scratch, they stripped away the turret, raised the hull, and transformed the chassis into a mechanized infantry vehicle. Simple. Efficient. Affordable. The result entered production in 1960, and within a few years the VCI began spreading far beyond France. Belgium bought hundreds. The Netherlands fielded entire mechanized formations with them. Argentina assembled them under license. Engineers turned the chassis into ambulances, mortar carriers, command vehicles, missile launchers, anti-aircraft systems, even battlefield recovery platforms. Poorer militaries loved it because one vehicle could fill almost every role they needed. But the AMX-VCI's real legacy wasn't built on parade grounds. It was built in wars. Ironically, France itself never fired the vehicle in combat. French crews trained for decades in West Germany, preparing for a Soviet invasion that never came. The VCI spent the Cold War parked in forests, rolling through NATO exercises, and waiting for a war that remained hypothetical. Other nations had no such peace. Lebanon became the VCI's defining battlefield. During the Lebanese Civil War, vehicles originally delivered to the National Army splintered across competing militias. Christian factions used them. Amal fighters captured others. Some were modified into improvised tank destroyers with recoilless rifles bolted onto the roof. In Beirut's shattered streets, French-built troop carriers designed for NATO warfare became instruments of urban civil conflict. Indonesia pushed the VCI through jungles and cities alike. They appeared during Operation Trikora, rolled into Jakarta during the 1965 power struggle that brought Suharto to power, and later fought in East Timor and Aceh. Mexico still fields upgraded examples today. That may be the most astonishing part of the story. A machine designed in the early 1950s, obsolete on paper by almost every modern standard, was still patrolling Mexican streets in 2026 after cartel violence erupted following the death of a major drug lord. 70 years. Most armored vehicles vanished long before that. And on paper, the AMX-VCI should have disappeared too. The American M113 was lighter, amphibious, cheaper, and produced in vastly greater numbers. But the French vehicle offered something different. It was designed for infantry to fight from inside the vehicle itself, years before that philosophy became standard doctrine in the West. That single idea quietly made it one of the earliest true infantry fighting vehicles. Today, the AMX-10P that replaced it is already gone from service. France's modern VBCI now occupies that role. Yet the old VCI still survives in foreign arsenals, military museums, and conflict zones far from where it was born. A cramped steel box from 1957 was never supposed to become immortal. But some machines refuse to die. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe and follow for more.